it also basically says that these facilities will be used at the discretion of Homeland Security if not used by one of these other stipulations that it listed, which is, an emergency or something like that. It's HR 645. I encourage you to get on thomas.gov and take a look-see. HR 645. So what we have going on is you have a piece of legislation calling for DHS to take over 6 existing military bases. They are divided, we're divided into FEMA regions. The Council of Governors, all but one of the FEMA regions are represented by the Council of Governors. These FEMA regions is also how it's divided up to set up these military facilities for emergency. But what concerns me, and they also call for them to be near a mass transit line. Okay? So just take a step back and take that in for a second. You have DHS creating fusion centers and basically infiltrating through the back door your local and state law enforcement. You have DHS and the president coming together to create this council of governors who their goal is to synchronize and integrate state and federal military. And then you have the call for long-term detention centers, long-term health, long-term education, long-term everything. We could be walking down a very dangerous path right now, ladies and gentlemen. We could be. In fact, we are. Because what they're doing, they're not violating the Constitution per se by creating these fusion centers. When Sheriff Mack took on the Brady bill, the Supreme Court decision came down and they said that the federal government cannot commandeer state and local law enforcement for federal bidding. So they can't come in and say, local police department, you must do this. But that Supreme Court decision did not say the federal government could not bribe your state and local law enforcement. So when they dangle this grant money in front of your local police department and say, hey, take this money, we're going to train you, we're going to give you all this technology, and you're going to be able to communicate more effectively with surrounding law enforcement communities. That sounds good, doesn't it? But we're going to stick a DHS analyst in your office and an FBI analyst in your office. And we're going to share that information in a bazillion different directions. In fact, the Oklahoma Fusion Center has a memorandum of understanding for information sharing with the country of Germany. That's driver's license information. With the country of Germany. Do you think that Oklahoma residents know that their fusion center signed an agreement with the country of Germany to share driver's license data? I don't think they know. In fact, I'm certain they don't know. I'm certain of it. I challenge any of you to walk into the state of Oklahoma or call one of your friends or family members in Oklahoma and ask them if they know that. They're not going to know. So they are circumventing our sovereignty, not by direct force, but by going in through the back door. They're dangling money in front of their face. You don't necessarily have to have legislation passed. Some of these fusion centers are created by an executive order by the governor. Some of them are created by the city council. Some are created by the state legislature, like the one here in New Hampshire. Now in Missouri, we have 4. In Texas, they've got 7. Here y'all have 1. It was just created. And I encourage you guys to get active on that immediately. Because the legislation to enact it was passed in January. That means that you have time to really influence the process and influence what is going on. Down in Austin, John has been instrumental in throwing wrenches in their gears. They're trying to create a new fusion center in Austin. And because of the pressure that he and his organization have been putting on the city council, the process has been very slow. And they've been putting chains around this fusion center and building walls around this fusion center and really working to make sure that this fusion center is not engaged in nefarious activity. So let's talk about some solutions. What we're engaged in right now is called Operation Defuse. As I said, this was born out of our understanding and realization that our movement is not aware that DHS is behaving in such a way, that our movement is not aware of the existence of these fusion centers, and that should they become aware, it is my belief that the movement will stand up and put a stop to it. And it is my job right now to make sure that all of you understand exactly what is happening and what tools and resources that you can utilize to try and throw some wrenches in their gears before we get to the point where we have some sort of natural disaster and that legislation that is waiting in the wings right now. HR 645 isn't quickly swept through. You need to be aware of it. So when they try to sweep it through quickly and fast, like they tried to do with healthcare and cap and trade, that we can be the ones paving the way and saying no. Now, with Operation Defuse, we have some really cool projects going on I want to make you aware of. First and foremost, next week we are submitting nationwide open records requests to every single fusion center in the nation. Now the reason for this is to get copies of strategic reports authored by all types of fusion centers, to get copies of their memorandums of understanding so we can see who they're sharing information with, what type of information they're sharing with each other, and who they're sharing that information with. This will be all of the records that we are obtaining. We will be uploading onto the internet, and we are creating what we would like to call, right now the name we're giving it is PIAC, the People's Information Analysis Center. And we are creating our own fusion center so we can turn the cameras around on them. Now this is an extremely research-intensive project. We've had to get the state laws for open records requests in every single state. We're having to get the contact information of every single fusion center because the DHS website, it lists 72 fusion centers, but the one in Kansas City and Missouri aren't listed on there. The one in New Mexico isn't listed there. We're visiting all these. There are many more that are listed on the DHS website. So we are trying to create a central repository where everyone in this room and everyone in this nation and across the globe can go and find out exactly how the police state is operating. You can see the actual agreements that they have with each other. The next thing that we're doing is we're trying to humanize. We're taking the Oath Keepers concept and we're applying it directly on the fusion centers. We are showing up and shaking hands and sitting down and meeting with the directors of fusion centers all across the country. And I'm going to tell you, I feel much safer now that I've done that. Because when we showed up to the DHS Fusion Center Conference in New Orleans, we'd already been through 8 states. And they were a little concerned about us because we had, homemade press passes for the Austin Free Press, and we showed up in there, and we had it pre-registered, and they called security. But while we were standing there with security, pulling John out of the Attorney General's speech, and Fusion Center directors started coming up and talking to us, ones who we had already met, and ones who we had not. The Kansas City Fusion Center director, who I've actually never met because I hit the road before being able to sit down and talk to the Kansas City Fusion Center director, walked up to John, shook his hand and said, "Hey, I've seen your YouTube videos, I'm a big fan." The former director of the Florida Fusion Center came up to us and said, "You know how I found you? I found you on Facebook through the red light camera protest, and I hope you guys defeat them. I don't want them anymore." So these are real people. They're real people. And you can communicate with them, you can talk to them. And the director of the Florida Fusion Center said, everyone was whispering, "Oh, the defuse people are coming, the defuse people are coming." And he laughed and he said, "Come on, I've watched their YouTube videos, they're just kids, Liberty kids, that's right." And so at the very end, when we were walking out, we turned and we asked the ladies at the front, "So do you feel a little silly for calling security on us now?" And they said, "Yeah, you guys were very respectful." So what we are doing, I feel as if the call were to come down from DHS to go round up those Operation Defuse Liberty kids, I know in my gut, I feel in my gut that the directors of the fusion centers would say no. Because we have taken the time and the energy to sit down, look them in the eye, and tell them that we are not a threat. And we are trying to find solutions where we can work together and solve this. Because the fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, we all went through the same public education system, whether we're law enforcement or not. And we need to be working together to educate and uplift each other. So if you have any questions about fusion centers, I have so much information. I've got documents, I've got binders full of stuff in my car. I would be happy to step you through it. I'd be happy to get you involved with Operation Defuse if you're interested in any way. If you would like to be a PIAC analyst for your state, please step up. I would love to have you on board. So thank you guys for having me today. My name is Bleish. I'm Executive Director of the Restoration Project.